You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Incoming transmission.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Oh, yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from beautiful Western Phoenix, Arizona. I am your host, Matt Holloway. Today is Sunday, October the 21st in the year of our Lord 2018. And, oh man, what a week! On the 19th, on Friday, I actually had the great honor and distinction to be admitted by the White House press pool to President Trump's rally located at International Air Response in Mesa. That's out of the Mesa Gateway International Airport. And it was a heck of a time. We actually carried the broadcast live on Facebook.com/HoloNet. We also reposted that up on Spreaker because the original podcast live coverage was garbage, and I had to recover the audio from Facebook Live. But, hey, we got it taken care of. That is up right now on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and BitChute. All great places where you can find the HoloNet podcast. And, of course, www.theholonet.com and theholonet.lanterns.buzz. I would also like to put out my great thanks, extend some thanks and some appreciation to our brothers over at the Defenders of American Exceptionalism. Stephen Airy swooped in to the rescue and began sharing that stream when it became absolutely crystal clear that either Facebook or some other technical issue was severely kneecapping me in real time. And I have witnesses to this as we were trying to broadcast directly from the Trump rally. I did not have any access to my publisher tools on my Facebook homepage from my laptop, despite having a steady, solid Wi-Fi connection, which was provided explicitly for the press corps. I was not able to access my publisher tools, so I could not utilize my standard rig, which is my laptop, my nice Logitech webcam, my Blue Snowball microphone. None of it was working, so I had to switch to a clip-on lapel microphone and the crap-lousy camera on my cell phone in order to carry this live and to do the best I could. The audio quality is fairly good, given the fact that it's a clip-on lapel mic. You know, that worked out pretty well. The visual quality is regrettably quite terrible. And I have a couple people there that I went with. I'm seeing if I can get better pictures from them. But that's what happened, and I'm not too happy about it. Furthermore, moments after we posted the live coverage of the Trump rally to Facebook, boom, I was hit with a copyright infringement claim from Sony Music Entertainment due to the presence of the music being played at the Trump rally. So where, you know, he's playing the Rolling Stones in the background, or you know, Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer by Elton John, or whoever is there, it dinged me for the copyright on that, despite the fact that on the back of a press pass, I'll tell you this. This credential is a non-transferable, revocable license. Credentials may be revoked from persons engaging in inappropriately or disorderly behavior or for any other reason deemed necessary by security personnel or for Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated. Credential holder grants Donald J. Trump the unrestricted right and license to use the holder's likeness in any broadcast, telecast, or other depiction or transmission of Donald J. Trump for President event, and the right to use, authorize use of holder's likeness in any subsequent commercial or campaign activity. So, the way this works is it's a two-way street. I have license to cover and broadcast what I see. That is the meaning of holding credentials as media at a function. So there is an assumption of license there. The legal assumption, and I'm not a lawyer, so your mileage may vary, and I may get slammed for this, but my understanding of it is I am there broadcasting a public event under the assumption that any music used there has the appropriate licensure. So in which case, working under the assumption that the Trump campaign has acquired license to use the songs that they're using. I am then covering that event from a news and commentary standpoint, making transformative change to that information by providing my commentary and broadcasting it as a public service. So this falls squarely under fair use. Facebook slammed me for copyright, and when I uploaded it to YouTube later, 7 different YouTube copyright violations. So now, on my page, which, by the way, still isn't monetized, you're going to see ads that aren't mine until I get this successfully challenged, because all of the owners of these various songs are going to try to put ads on my video. It's an hour and 57 minutes long. We cover from the end of Governor Ducey's speech, because of how long it took me to get there, all the way to when President Trump leaves. And it's 2 hours long. Like I said, there's some great stuff in there. I've got some clips and some cuts from it that we're going to discuss today. But if you want to check it out, you can listen to the whole thing on Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, anywhere you can get the podcast. It's up there. If you want to watch the video, that is on Facebook.com/HoloNet, also on YouTube and on BitChute. Be sure to check it out there. I thought the president put on a hell of a show. Man makes an entrance, I'll give you that. When Marine One is coming right at you, you notice. But I thought very energetic speech, but we're going to get into that in just a second here. So, why was President Trump in Mesa? Why was President Trump in Missoula? Why was President Trump in any of these places this past week? President Trump is shoring up the Senate. Plain and simple. The Republicans are in substantial danger of losing their Senate majority, especially here in Arizona. I mean, it's a close race between Martha McSally and Kyrsten Sinema. I hope and I believe that this rally was enough to put it over the edge, because I think a grand total of 12 protesters, that's 12, 2 digits. I think about a dozen protesters showed up that we were able to confirm independently, seeing with my own eyes as we came in. And the rest of it was just a sea of red MAGA hats and American flag attire and some Trump flags worn like capes. People brought flags. They didn't bring flagpoles because security said not to, because they didn't want like a based stickman thing happening there. But people brought their flags, they brought their signs, they brought their patriotism, and there was no sign of any of the expected Antifa or anti-fascist, anti-fascist, even though they act like fascists. No sign at all of their protesting or their attempts to interfere with this event. I think it was a very wise choice, strategically speaking, to hold this a little bit off the beaten path out in Mesa, and I think it worked out very well. There were thousands in attendance who could not enter, okay? If I did not have these press credentials supplied by the White House press pool, I wouldn't have been able to get into this thing at all, period. I'm particularly honored that I could, and I will say this, I am not a huge press outlet. The HoloNet is a small team, and really the only constant in that team is me, along with friends helping from Lanterns Media Network. Steven's been a big help. Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom is always a huge help. He helped me out with the live stream. Dylan Lyles, also from Defenders. Jonathan Dunn has been very instrumental, Freedom's disciple. So I owe a lot of people thanks for what we accomplish here at the HoloNet podcast. But I am really the only constant on the team, and I bring in help from other places when they can give it and when I need it. But it really is an honor to be invited to cover an event like this when 10 years ago, this was impossible. This was impossible. And I really do have to say that the Trump campaign the Trump White House is the first to look at alternative media sources. And, I'm not going to say alt media because, then it gets confused with alt-right. And, next thing you know, people think I'm Richard Spencer. I'm not. But alternative media sources, smaller media sources, bloggers, podcast hosts, vloggers, vlog hosts, YouTube personalities, of which I am a small amalgam of all of those, really. Contributors who have written for various sources. And they're allowing these smaller time media sources in to play with the big boys. And it is an honor and a privilege, one that I do not think for a second would have been accomplished in a Clinton White House. It would have been the good old boys of journalism again, limited to. I mean, you would have had like the big names there, the CNN, the Fox News. That's it. You don't have people like me getting a chance. So that I'm grateful for, and that I'm appreciative of. Now let's get into it. Let's go to a couple of cuts here from the Trump rally that I want to talk about. First is President Trump's take on what happened to now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and what the American people think of that. We're going to go to cut one, Trump on Kavanaugh.
We achieved another historic victory for the American people. In a beautiful ceremony at the White House, we proudly swore in the newest member of the United States Supreme Court. They treated him badly. What the radical Democrats did to Justice Kavanaugh and his wonderful family is a national disgrace, and don't forget it on November 6th. Don't forget it.
Now that is going to kind of set a tone for President Trump's description of the Democrats throughout the rally and throughout the other rallies and going into the 2018 campaign. He describes them as radical. He describes them as unhinged at one point. You'll get to that in our next cut here. But this is a constant, and I think this is going to be the drumbeat going into the 2018 and the 2020 elections. And I will say this. If the Democrats have gains in the House, which is what it looks like on paper right now, it looks like they will gain control of the House, but they will not gain control of the Senate. Even if they have gains in the House and they gain control of the Senate for 2 years, the gains, I believe, will be very short-lived, because the Democratic Party has quite officially jumped the shark. And if RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, retires between now and 2020, Trump 2020 will be an unstoppable juggernaut, because the Democrats will become out of control in their attempt to prevent another appointment to the Supreme Court. So let's go to cut 2. The Democrats are unhinged.
The Democrats have become an angry, unhinged mob, determined to get power by any means necessary. Your vote in this election will decide which party controls Congress.
So, no kidding. No crap, Sherlock. Our vote's going to decide who controls Congress. We know that. But listen to how the president is describing the opposition party. And this knife cuts both ways. The Democrats have been extremely critical and extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Incivil, in their own words. There's been a great deal of incivility, or uncivility, between the Democrats and the Republicans. And it's cutting both ways at this point. The president is calling them angry and unhinged, just as the president is in turn called a fascist, or is in turn called a Nazi, or insert your pejorative term here. It has gotten to a point, where this is the rhetoric that we're hearing. And we need to recognize how very dangerous these times we live in are, when we have a sitting president who is able to rightly say these kinds of things about what in other countries would be the loyal opposition. And I think the loyal opposition is something we desperately need to borrow from parliamentary politics. The concept of loyalty in opposition, that while you may oppose vehemently everything that the ruling party stands for, that the majority party stands for, you are still loyal to the overall country, not considering them deplorable. All right? So we're going to go next to probably the most sound-biteable clip that I heard the whole time from President Trump.
The choice for every American could not be more clear than it is right now. Democrats produce mobs, Republicans produce jobs.
There's your campaign slogan right there. There is your campaign slogan, and God, I looked to the person next to me at the rally and I said, that is one hell of a soundbite, and that's going to be one that's trotted out again and again and again between now and 2020. Get used to hearing that for the next 24 months, folks. Democrats produce mobs, Republicans produce jobs. That is going to be the new Make America Great Again is now CAG, Keep America Great, which I don't think is going to prove as catchy. And in the wake of the news pertaining to Elizabeth Warren, Congresswoman Elizabeth Warren, and her ancestry / 23andMe genetic testing, showing that she apparently, I think the meme is 1,024th Native American. Of course, President Trump had to do it.
Based on the competition that we see, we can no longer say Pocahontas because she has no Indian. I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll have to come up with another name for her.
Oh, I can't wait to see the contest and the naming convention for this.
Elizabeth Warren. Very boring name.
Come on, we had a president named Warren. Warren G. Harding. It's not that bad of a name.
I'm going to have to come up with another name. I can't use the word Pocahontas anymore.
Well, if you want to go by what people have been saying, you probably shouldn't have been using the name Pocahontas for like the last 2 or so years, but you've been doing it anyway. I don't think you're going to stop now.
There's no Indian blood. I always said, I have more Indian blood than she has, and I have none.
Okay, that is probably going to get him into trouble. When he says, I have more Indian blood and I have none, I'm waiting for a statement from one tribe or another, maybe like the Mohegans who he dealt with. Well, actually, it wasn't the Mohegans. I don't think the Mohegans are around anymore. Anyway, he had some dealings with some Native American tribes in New York who were trying to build casinos. They might take issue with that, so stay tuned. Keep your ears open for that.
We'll have to come up with another name. If Nancy Pelosi or Brian Churchill and the radical Democrats take control of Congress on November 6th, they will try to plunge our country into a nightmare of gridlock, poverty, and chaos. You know that. It's going to be a mess.
So there we have it. The radical Democrats plunging our nation into poverty and chaos. I think he said crime, poverty, and chaos. And that is going to be the byline for this year's election, is keeping the Democrats from reversing the changes that he's made so far. So we got a couple more clips to get through here. Looks like, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more clips to get through here. And then we are going to talk a bit about the Electoral College. So all that when we come back from this quick break. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, facebook.com/HoloNet, BitChute, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, now Spotify and Google Play Music. All places where great podcasts are found. Thank you very much for listening so far. We'll be right back.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
All right, you're listening to HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. I am going to drop a little bit of wisdom on you today. We've made some big changes on the holonet.com, and you'll be able to find them right about down here in this region here, below all of our stories. And when you're reading a story on the holonet.com, boom, you've got our related products, which you can pick up. These are conservative tomes. These are the sources of our knowledge when it comes to the conservative movement here in the United States, and some of them are just good fun. You'll see here the Constitution of the State of Arizona. You can pick that up. Biopic on Ted Kennedy, Identity Crisis, the 2016 presidential campaign, Rules for Radicals Defeated, and Understanding the Arizona Constitution. Now, these are ads by Amazon. Full disclosure, when you purchase something off of Amazon.com on the HoloNet, that does go towards supporting our page, supporting our content. So please, make sure you check that out on the holonet.com. And now, here's the really cool part, our recommended reading list. Now, I posted this back on Facebook a while back, and here we have all the must-haves. The Constitution of the United States and the Federalist Papers, the Bible Promise Book, New World Translation of the Bible, and holy crap, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Jerry Doyle, Ann Coulter, Bill O'Reilly. There's a lot of Beck on here. I read a lot of his stuff. Dinesh D'Souza, Greg Gutfeld, and of course Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. If you want to pick up any of these recommended books, you can do that on the holonet.com/p/Matt's reading list, or just go to the holonet.com, click recommended reading. Finally, to take on a little tour here to the special offers section on the holonet.com. We have a free trial from Audible. You get 2 free audiobooks. You can start your free month of Amazon Prime Video. You can download free Kindle reading app and get $3 towards your ebooks, or start your free trial, your free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime. That's right, the HoloNet is now a member of the Amazon affiliate program. So please, if you want to check out any of those great services, go to holonet.com, click special offers, and get that today. That's on the holonet.com. Now back to the show.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Yes, that's right. The new millennial conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now with you. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Thanks for joining us today. Coming back to it now, we have a couple more clips from the Trump rally here in Mesa, Arizona, that I wanted to get to before we jump over to our second half hour, and we talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and renewed efforts to subvert or abolish the Electoral College of the United States. So first, we're going to go to President Trump talking about the caravan, tax cuts, and Justice Kavanaugh.
Now, as you know, Mexico is on their southern border, and they're fighting some bad people in that group. You know, you see the people come up and you listen to the fake news back there, and you think they're all wonderful people. You got some bad people in those groups. You got some tough people in those groups. And I'll tell you what, this country doesn't want them. Democrats have become the party of crime. It will be the election of Kavanaugh, the caravan, law and order, tax cuts. We forget about tax cuts all the time. And common sense. But we forget about tax cuts. We gave you the biggest tax cut in the history of our country.
So let's talk to that real quick. Let's speak to that. We have the caravan, which, as of the time of recording that rally, it appeared that the caravan had been turned back, but now we know that several of the Honduran refugees, quote-unquote refugees, I would prefer to call them migrants, have made it through the South Mexican border, And, President Trump alluded to that. A lot of them were turning back in response to the president's threat to close and militarize the border. Most recent news on that, Guatemala claims to have caught 100 ISIS terrorists as the migrant caravan reaches the border. And, there are images flying all around social media right now of these Guatemalan migrants, these Honduran migrants, carrying the flags of their native countries as they walk into Mexico. And there was a standoff overnight at Mexico's southern border as the migrant caravan of thousands tried to reach the U.S. And we'll go to that from the blaze right here. As you can see, a view of the migrant caravan headed toward the United States on the Guatemala-Mexico International Border Bridge in Ciudad Hidalgo, Chiapas State. And that is from Pedro Parado at AFP. Standoff between Mexican police and thousands-strong migrant caravan attempting to reach the United States lasted through Friday night into Saturday morning at the southern border. Members of the caravan, numbering about 3,000 migrants, broke through a Guatemalan border fence and rushed onto the bridge over the Suchiate River, the network said. But police on the Mexican side of the bridge pepper-sprayed and pushed them back, CBS News said, adding that about 50 managed to get through. Many in the retreating caravan slept overnight on the bridge linking the two countries, the network said, adding that police and immigration agents let small groups of 10, 20, or 30 people through if they wanted to apply for refugee status. They can spend the night once they file claims. Some migrants jumped off the bridge into the river, adding that one 16-year-old jumper said there are no jobs here. And we can see images here of the migrants coming over, and a lot of people have drawn the conclusion here. It appears to be a lot of young, able-bodied men and women who are coming over, so not quite the typical image of refugees that you would see. This is not like the panicked crowd coming over. Like I said, these are people in, sports jerseys coming over. Looks like maybe a couple of footballers or soccer players. I don't know. But again, these do not look like people who are fleeing from a war zone. This looks like people who are moving from state to state just for a better job. It's interesting. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto said late Friday night to address his fellow citizens that a large group of migrants has, quote, tried to enter Mexican territory irregularly, attacking and even hurting some elements of the federal police. He added, Mexico does not permit and will not permit entry into its territory in an irregular fashion, much less a violent fashion. Geronimo Gutierrez, Mexico's ambassador to the U.S., said his country had reason to believe the migrant caravan from Honduras was not a result of grassroots effort, but was, quote, politically motivated. Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez and Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales are expected to meet in Guatemala early Saturday to discuss the situation. And as we said, President Trump threatened to close the U.S. border if Mexico didn't stop the caravan. But he did thank the Mexican police, saying, thank you, Mexico. We look forward to working with you. So it would appear that President Trump's efforts to rein in the migrant caravan have been initially quite successful. However, you'll notice the number on there, 3,000, changed from the 4,000 the other day, suggesting that approximately 1,000 people have managed their way into Mexico, either fleeing from authorities or coming in under the blanket description of refugee status, and are likely to make their way up to the American border, probably here in Arizona or in Mexico or California. I'm going to say probably here in Arizona, because that's where they come over when they're trying to get in illegally. So moving on to the next clip from the campaign event, this kind of circles back to what I was describing before, the president's very partisan description of the Democrats as too extreme and too dangerous to be trusted.
The Democrat Party has become too extreme and too dangerous to be trusted with power. If you want to drain the swamp, you must defeat the Democrats. You have to know it.
That's the level of partisanship in the United States right now. This is what we think of them and what they think of us. One side versus the other deems the other to be an existential threat, that they are too dangerous, too extreme to be trusted with power. And that's how the Democrats feel about us. That's how liberal socialists on the left, leftists in general, feel about much of the right and Trump administration, is that we're too dangerous to be trusted with power. It's this kind of sown distrust that has put us where we are today and in the dangerous situation we're in. And just a couple of funny things here. alluding to that, we go to the new Democratic platform, according to President Trump.
The new platform of the Democrat Party is radical socialism and open borders. As we speak, the Democrat Party is openly inviting millions of illegal aliens to break our laws, violate our borders, and overwhelm our nation.
God, I wish I could say he was wrong.
Other than that, the Democrats are doing a great job, right?
Yeah, nice. Other than that, they're doing a great job. They're trying to destroy the country, but other than that, they're doing a great job. I really do wish that I could point to some of these things, some of these descriptions that President Trump has made of the DNC and of Democrats' recent efforts, and say that he was wrong, because I don't want him to be right. Unfortunately, it is undeniable that the DNC has been hijacked by extreme elements of the left, people who are avowed democratic socialists who want to disrupt or destroy the essential instruments and institutions of our founders' vision. We're going to come to that just shortly here. I just want to get through one more kind of funny clip and one more kind of sad clip from the Trump campaign event. First is, I'm pretty sure Governor Doug Ducey had a bad day. He got the living crap booed out of him here.
Thank you, Dave. Great job. We're also honored to be joined by your fantastic governor and friend of mine, Doug Ducey. And don't worry about it, Doug. That's That's not. It is, too. That's pretty impressive when you get. Doug is fantastic.
Okay, how bad is that? I could draw the similarity here to an episode of The Simpsons. And sorry, I couldn't get the clip because I was too busy cutting that up. But when Mr. Burns is making a speech and he gets booed, and his lackey, his toady, Mr. Smithers, comes up to him and says, "No, sir, they're not saying boo, they're saying boo earns. Boo earns." Is that exactly what President Trump is trying to do for Doug Ducey? Here, we're going to play it again.
Thank you, Dave. Great job. We're also honored to be joined by your fantastic governor and friend of mine, Doug Ducey.
There it is.
And don't worry about it, Doug. That's That's not. It is, too. That's pretty impressive when you get.
No, that's not pretty impressive, Mr. President. I'm sorry. That dude just got booed by his own party in his own state. Okay, I don't think David Garcia is going to win the governor's seat, but that's gotta suck. That's gotta suck when the president has to cover for the fact that your own people just booed you. Damn. Just feel the burn on that one. I mean, sucks to be you, Doug. Sucks to be you. But really, sucks to be Kirsten Sinema in the last couple of weeks here, when audio from several years ago, back in her protester days, came out where she apparently says that it's okay for Americans to join the Taliban. So President Trump had some quick words to say on that.
I'm not going to agree with you. After 9/11, Martha McSally heroically led airstrikes against radical Islamic terrorists. Very successful. While Martha was bravely fighting the Taliban, Kirsten Sinema said she had no problems with Americans defecting from our country to join the Taliban.
It's so bad.
How does that happen in Arizona?
So bad.
That would do it. Sinema made these comments even as courageous Americans.
I didn't pull this audio. A bunch of other people have it up. Listen to it. It's so bad. It's cringy. And her response to it's even worse.
Service members were giving their lives in the fight against enemy Taliban forces. Kirsten Sinema also embraced a left-wing radical who was convicted of providing material support to terrorists. This is what you want as your senator? I don't think so.
All right, here, I'm actually going to try to get the original comments here. Let's see. It looks like the Daily Caller had it. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can get it. stand by one. I'm trying to do this live, and that doesn't work out well every time, so hang on.
No. I don't think...
as an individual, if I want to go fight in the Taliban army, I go over there and I'm fighting for the Taliban. I'm saying that's a personal decision.
Fine, I don't care if you want to do that.
Okay, so Kyrsten Sinema claims that she's been taken out of context on that, and she made that claim here on CNN, I believe. She said, CNN says Kyrsten Sinema's comments were taken out of context. That's on YouTube. And she, according to the Daily Caller, won't say if she regrets that. And McSally called her out for quote-unquote treason during her contentious political debate on AZ3 this past week. So she has been getting just bludgeoned with that clip, and President Trump even taking up the call there. So we're going to take a really, really short break, and when we come back, we need to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and newly renewed efforts to abolish the Electoral College and undercut the system of our American Republic. And why is everybody so surprised? This has happened 700 times in the history of this country. And you know who always pushes for it? The party that just lost an election. All that when we come back from this really short break. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages, the new millennial conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network, and don't say that I didn't freaking warn you. So going back to what I mentioned earlier in the podcast today, I have been slapped with 7 different copyright violations by YouTube and at least 1 by Facebook for the Trump rally coverage that I offered live. So, in protest to the copyright slamming that I've been getting from our social media sources, I decided that the song I'm going to use for this next clip, because it's really, really relevant, I downloaded the dang background music, copyright-safe background music, and I sang it myself. They made me do this by slapping me with BS copyright violations like twice a week. The other day, when I did Hail Britannia, they slapped me with a copyright violation for Hail Britannia. When I did the British March, they slapped me with a copyright violation for the British Military March. I get slapped with a copyright violation pretty much for using anything anymore, and this is why my channel has not become monetized on YouTube. So you know what? In protest, I subject you all to my singing voice. And why? Because the attempted abolition of our electoral college, the subversion of our Republican system of government, which is set out in the Federalist Papers and in the Constitution of the United States, is ancient. This has been going on since the founding of our country, and it's always by the party that just lost. So we're going to talk about how everything old is new again. When trumpets were mellow, and every gal only had one fellow, no need to remember when, 'cause everything old is new again. Long Island jazzy parties, a way to bring us some more Bacardi. We'll order now what they ordered then, 'cause everything old is new again. Get out your white suit, your tap shoes and tails, and let's go backward when forward fails. And movie stars you thought were long dead are now framed beside your bed. Don't throw the past away, you might need it some rainy day. Dreams can come true again when everything old is new again. Get out your white suit, your tap shoes and tails, put it on backwards when forward fails. Better leave Greta Garbo alone and be a movie star on your own. Don't throw the past away, you might need it some rainy day. Dreams can come true again when everything old is new again. When everything old is new again. And the crowd goes wild. Yes, that was actually me. Cut that as a recording a little bit earlier today. And, God, I'm sorry. But as I said, YouTube and Facebook haven't really left me much of a friggin' choice. So let's go back to the matter at hand now, the attempted abolition and subversion of the Electoral College of the United States of America. We go to SmithsonianMag.com. This is a story that actually came out 2016, right about when the loss occurred, November 21st. And it's by, what was her name? Jennifer Nowicki. And Jennifer writes, the Electoral College has been divisive since day one. It has always had the potential for chaos, one that hasn't been tapped yet. She goes on to tell us how, she goes on to claim, again, this is a common fallacy, that the Electoral College is linked to slavery. Not so much, no, especially if you read the Federalist Papers. But I digress. So she goes to draw that conclusion, which I fully disagree with, but she does point out nicely that as the voting public has evolved and become more knowledgeable, the outcry, I would say evolved and become less knowledgeable of a Republican system of government. Anyway, the outcry against the Electoral College has never abated. According to the National Archives, in the past 200 years, have brought more than 700 proposed constitutional amendments to either reform or eliminate the Electoral College. And back in 2016, Senator Barbara Boxer of California authored a bill that would abolish the Electoral College in favor of a popular vote. So round about that same time, I want to direct you to a little story that I wrote. This is actually back in my days as a Blaze contributor, where I wrote March 7th, 2016. Actually, I wrote this before the election. Ha-ha! With near instantaneous reporting of votes we enjoy today, the next president could be elected before the polls even close west of the Continental Divide on Election Day. How is this possible? Through the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. So what I do in this article is I lay out the dangers of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which is the latest attempt by the left to subvert and destroy our electoral system. And I actually point out the origins of our current system in the Federalist Papers. I actually pulled a quote here. Yeah, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact represents a threat to the constitutionality of our government by creating a de facto interstate body of quote-unquote chief election officials whom will direct the state's electoral votes irrespective and possibly in direct opposite of how the voters of their state decide. While considered by many as narrowly consistent with the language of the Constitution, this initiative clearly defies the intent of the framers, which was already clarified in the first paragraph of the 12th Amendment. Okay? Here's the brass tacks, guys. In another piece that I wrote this for Lanterns, and I also put this on the holonet.com, The Dominion of the Coasts, the Future of Conservative America. The reason the Electoral College exists is crucial. It's the cities versus the country. It's not the North versus the South, as our friends at the Smithsonian and on the left try to say. It's not about the city dweller versus the plantation owner. This is about the city dweller versus everybody else. This is about a half a dozen counties in the United States, Los Angeles County, the 5 boroughs of New York, Dallas, Houston, Chicago, being able to decide the fate of the entire United States for all intent and purpose. That's what we're talking about here, guys. That's what we're discussing. The dominion of the coasts, the domination of this country by cities. And don't laugh and say that it can't happen. You know, there was a gentleman on Twitter the other day who was trying to explain, that's not what it means. Clearly you don't know anything about population. You know, New York and LA, you only have 2.5 million people out of 191 million. It's about concentration of population, dingus. Okay? The cities are the largest concentration of population. So if you have a popular vote system, the only places you will go to campaign are the cities. Out of a means of efficiency. This is why the Democrats and the Republicans alike, they have their locked-in states and they have the swing states, the ones that they won't lose. And they always go to the highest electoral college value swing states. This is why there's not a lot of polling and a lot of pandering to California or Texas or New York, because they're pretty much foregone conclusions. But you have the states that swing, which change every year, but usually include Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Florida, states like that, Iowa, because they're the first friggin' primary, states of this nature that can move with the different ebbs and flows of politics, but have enough of an electoral value to really count. Okay? So if you have this kind of a scenario, it becomes too difficult to play for a crowd that large when you're campaigning. So the only way to win is to try to capture as many of the large metroplexes as possible to be able to get your message out to as many people as you can, as quickly as you can. And furthermore, this system, this National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, as I illustrated in my story for The Blaze, basically sets out that as soon as you hit the 51% line of the American population, the election is over. It's over. As we tally our votes in real time, there are 191 million voters in the United States. The way population distribution works in this country is the vast majority of that population lives east of the Mississippi, guys. By the time the polls close, by the time the polls open in some parts of the United States, the election will have already been decided. Think of that. How 22 states could render the entire country voiceless, or half the country voiceless, in the next presidential election. That is what is at stake here. And the stories, there's a million of them. There's a million of them here. And it all circles Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other leftist sources pointing to the Electoral College as if it is the very same as Jim Crow, which is a patent lie. Pick up your Federalist paper. Federalist number 67, I believe it is. Let me check that out real fast and make sure that it's right. Here we go. Written by Alexander Hamilton. If you don't have a copy of the Federalist Papers, get one. Because this settles the argument of our founders' intent. The reason that we have an electoral college is in order to prevent insurrection and a twist of the vote. It's under the executive department. Okay, the mode of electing the president, actually it's Federalist number 68. Hamilton writes, It was desirable that the sense of the people should operate in the choice of the person to whom so important a trust was to be confided. The end will be answered by committing the right of making it not to any pre-established body, but to men chosen by the people for the special purpose and at that particular juncture. It was equally desirable that the immediate election be made by men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation and to judicious combination of all reasons and inducements which were proper to govern their choice. A small number of persons, selected by their federal citizens from the general mass, will be the most likely to possess the information and discernment requisite to such complicated investigations. It was also peculiarly desirable, this is an important part, that the immediate election, peculiarly desirable to afford as little opportunity as possible to tumult or disorder. Sound familiar? Sound like maybe, Antifa riots in cities? This evil was not least to be dreaded in the election of a magistrate who was to have so important an agency in the administration of the government as President of the United States. But the precautions which have been so happily concerted into the system under consideration promise effectual security against this mischief. The choice of several to form an intermediate body of electors will be much less apt to convulse the community with any extraordinary or violent movements than the choice of one who has himself to be the final object of the public wishes. And as the electors chosen in each state are assembled and vote in the state in which they are chosen, this detached and divided situation will expose them much less to heats and ferments which might be communicated from them to the people, than if they were all to be convened at one place and one time. Nothing was more to be desired than that every practicable obstacle should be opposed to cabal, intrigue, or corruption. These most deadly adversaries of Republican government might naturally have been expected to make their approaches from more than one quarter, but chiefly from the desire in foreign powers to gain an improper ascendant in our councils. How could they better gratify this than by raising a creature of their own to the chief magistrate of the Union? But the convention have guarded against all danger of this sort with the most provident of judicious attention. They have not made the appointment of a president dependent on any pre-existing bodies of men who might be tampered with beforehand to prostitute their votes, but have referred it in the first instance to an immediate act of the American people, to be exerted in the office of persons for the temporary and sole purpose of making this appointment, and they have excluded from eligibility to this trust all those who from situation might be suspected of too great devotion to the president in office. In English, the reason we have an electoral college is because they are appointed to this office temporarily for one damn job, and you can't influence them because they're not all in one place. They can't get got, okay? During 2016, I called on our electoral college members to stand firm. In a Facebook Live video that went pretty damn viral, I called them to stand firm to their convictions and not misvote, not go against the people that they represent. In such, they succeeded, and we got President Donald Trump, despite the tumults and heats coming from every quarter, as outlined by Hamilton in Federalist number 68. They tried, but the Electoral College served its purpose, and it was not corruptible by a media and a left wing who sought to overturn their loss. So remember, 700 times the Electoral College has been challenged, and it has prevailed, and it has preserved American freedom and a Republican form of government from the heats and tumults, cabal, and intrigue of direct democracy. America never was designed to be a democracy. It was then, is now, and always should be a federalist representative republic. On that note, folks, everything old is new again. Good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, I'm Matt Holloway.